Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Break podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Break podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 156 of the BJJ Break podcast. My name is Byron. I'm here with my good buddy Gary. What's happening, my friend?
Man, I'm ready for another great episode. We have Andy Pye on the show today. The dude is just awesome. The interview is incredible. And I love the end where, he talks about, being a good person in school, having friends instead of just totally hardcore. Stay tuned for the end of it. Don't miss that part. So we have some great dialogue going.
Yep. Hey, speaking of the end, the beginning of this interview, like a little personal history of Andy. He is really a pioneer in jiu-jitsu in China. Like he's the guy. He was in the first MMA fight that was televised in China, and he won it. But he tells that story. But he was so early on over there, and it still is, and he's got some strong opinions about what's happening in the current environment over there. But towards the end of the episode, it gets a little, the language is not safe for work on loudspeaker. So if you're offended by a little bit more extreme language, heads up on that one. But it's a lot of great content. He's not using it in a way that's like derogatory towards anybody. It's just somebody who's passionate and talking about jiu-jitsu.
He's showing his passion for what he believes in, and just by the way he's communicating and just talking about it, you just feel that passion. And it sounds like if you could train with him, boy, you would just love it. You'd have an incredible instructor, somebody to teach you.
Yep. Speaking of people who feel passion for jiu-jitsu or just for the podcast, we have four of our friends, Greggy, Alexander, Sean, and Rob, are supporting us on Patreon. We're considering making some changes to Patreon in the future, but right now, if you want to support the podcast per episode, swing by our Patreon page, check it out. The link will be in the show notes, and you watch a little video of me explaining it, and help us out. Those guys are doing it, and it's really been very helpful to the show.
Speaking of watching Byron on a video explaining it, hey, how about you listen to Byron explain your first year in BJJ? Byron has an audiobook. It's another way to support the show. It's only $11.99 for 2.5 hours of content. And basically, it's helping you through that first year of jiu-jitsu. We do have a link to it on the show notes, so check it out. Everything from picking a school to entering your first tournament. It's getting some great reviews, so check it out. Support the show. Your first year in BJJ, only $11.99.
Yep, and then we've gotten good reviews on it, and I really hope it helps you out and gets you through that first year of your training and on towards long-term success.
Byron, how long have we trained together?
I walked in on the mats, I think it was either April or May of 2002, and you were already there. So
yep. So just so you guys know, I was on the mats before Byron.
Yes, you were.
But did we know each other beforehand?
Negative.
And the cool thing is, we're friends now.
That's what they say.
Yep. Speaking of that, we have an awesome quote from a guy named Muhammad Ali, and I bet you all know who Muhammad Ali is. But he says, friendship is not something you learn in school. But if you haven't learned the meaning of friendship, you haven't really learned anything.
Wow. And it's a big quote coming from a legendary person in the combat sports, talking about how important friends are.
From a guy who is known kind of for his trash talking, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it kind of goes along a little bit with our interview with Andy Pye there too. But I guess you could take this any different way. You could talk about just friends or whatever. But I'm taking it back to the your jiu-jitsu school, your academy, and we can just go in and learn techniques, learn barambolas, learn flying arm bars, learn the Boston Crab and the Iron Claw, whatever we need to learn. But I kind of think that there's something a little more important than that. There's the friendship you learn in there. There's the people you meet. It's such a diverse group of people we meet, anywhere from doctors to professional fighters. And, that's one thing I always thought was crazy. When you go into a gym, you'll see a very educated person who doesn't want to fight, who just wants to get in there to blow off a little steam. And next thing you know, he becomes friends with the MMA fighter who is just a flat out straight killer, basically. And it's kind of cool, the friendships you developed. And those friendships are so strong because you're in mutual combat together. I mean, you guys are just trying to tweak each other's necks, trying to choke each other's out, trying to straighten the arm and bend it in the wrong way. So you get such a deep respect for your training partners. And, and I think about all the times I've trained jiu-jitsu, and, I can think of all the moves Byron has taught me, all the moves other people have taught me. But in all honesty, the friendship, in my opinion, is much more rewarding. If I was the crappiest jiu-jitsu guy, which I probably am, I don't care, because all the cool friends I met, during the time doing this sport.
Yeah, I agree. It's if all, and this gets discussed a little bit in the interview, if all you're doing is going to class and learning how to choke somebody or do an arm bar, and you go home, you're missing out on a huge part of jiu-jitsu. These people in the class, the people on the mats, are amazing people, and they have lives outside that are interesting, and they will care about you, and it's crazy the way this martial art, the sport, brings people together and really creates long-term friendships. So if you're feeling like, I'm just going to go, learn this, and that's fine to go through phases when you just want to, I've definitely been through that. I just want to learn how to triangle everybody in the class. That's my main thing. That's what I want to do. And then I have times when it's like, hey, I'm needing to go, get out from behind the computer and stop podcasting and go see my buddies and hang out with everybody and get some social time. And if, I get choked or choke somebody, that's just fine too. It's just kind of a side thing. So, jiu-jitsu brings a lot of different things, a lot of people, and definitely friendship is one that happens pretty naturally if you're open to it. So yeah, good quote there, Gary.
It's, normally I have trouble figuring out the quotes, and at first, I didn't really know where I was going to go with this quote, but I was like, man, this is what I'm passionate about, the friendship aspect. Hey, speaking of the friendship aspect, it doesn't necessarily have to be your friend to put this person in the contest, but one thing we really want to do and get going, which will bring exposure to your school and your coach, we want to have a Coach of the Year contest.
Oh, yeah.
And we mentioned it last week, and so far we've got 0. That's a big 0, a big circle of nominees. Basically, we just want anybody listening just to nominate your coach. Send us, an email, a little paragraph of, what your coach has done for you. It could be, because of my coach, I've lost, 50 pounds, and now my blood pressure's under control. It could be, anything. It's just whatever however somebody has helped you out. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have won a world championship. And, it could just even be a friend. I mean, I remember at one school I was at, there was a kid who, I don't really know if he had a house or anything. And he would come by, and it wasn't a place to live. I say a house. He's a young kid, but, I don't even know if he even got regular meals. And he was allowed to train for free. And I remember driving him home to a hotel, a really seedy hotel. And, I don't know if he ever ate, just stopping through a drive-through a couple times and getting him some food. And, so it could be stuff like that, trying to get you back on your feet. So it doesn't have to necessarily be jiu-jitsu accomplishments, and your coach doesn't have to be a world champion. And there's a heck of a lot more to jiu-jitsu than, being a world champion or winning tournaments.
Gary, I am a little tempted already to go through the process. Write up a little essay about my friend Gary, great coach, great person. Explain this. But I think we talked about this before the contest here. We're probably going to not have any coaches from the city we live in, which is Wichita, Kansas. It's just it would seem weird to have a coach of the year from our city. So we're looking for yeah. So just tell us what your coach means to you. If somebody has gone a little above and beyond, and what we'll do is we'll collect these essays. So you have to do a little bit of work. You have to type something up, and we'll have a little panel of people to vote on them. Gary and I aren't going to pick it. We might be in the panel. I don't know. But we'll have a little panel of people to read the essays, and we'll select one to be Coach of the Year. They get to put on their website, voted Coach of the Year by the BJJ Break podcast. That's a mildly good advertisement, I would think. I mean, just to say that is pretty neat. We'll put up a little write-up on them, about them on our website, put a link to their website for their school. So it's just a way to kind of shine a light on your coach, show what they've done, and also maybe help locally with some recruiting. People are looking at their different schools to look at training. They get to see this, and it might help them out, getting a few more students here and there, which are more friends for you.
Yep. And we'd like to do this every year. So think about this first year. You can be the inaugural, your coach can be the inaugural winner. That would be kind of cool to say that, especially when this podcast really gets big and we have more than 4 listeners. So that'd be kind of neat.
Yeah, that would be pretty neat, Gary.
Yep.
That would be pretty neat. What else? Gary, we met a couple of friends in Oklahoma.
Man, a couple of listeners from Oklahoma came down to an open mat to train with us from Stillwater, Oklahoma, home of the Oklahoma State Cowboys. But I'd like to say thank you very much to Jared and Hank for coming down and not beating me up too bad. I appreciate you guys taking a little easy on me. But, they were 2 of the nicest guys I've ever met, and hope to get a chance to train with them in the future.
Yep, sounds like they'll probably be back before too long. It's always great to meet fans, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode. But I just want to acknowledge Jared and Hank for swinging by and getting some mat time with us. So thank you guys, and making new friends. More about friendship and the quote.
This is like the friendship article. So, hey, should we bring in a purple dinosaur to sing about friendship next?
No, what we should do is bring in a guy who was a purple belt, an article written by him, and now he's a brown belt. And he's going to... In this article, he explains what the belt really means to him, being a purple belt, being a brown belt, and what it was like to be a purple belt for him. It really is an amazing article. The website is musttriumph.com. The article is On the Meaning of a Belt, written by Sam Yang. He got his brown belt from Cobrinha, which is amazing. That just sounds like an awesome person to get a brown belt from. And first off, before we even talk, we're not going to be able to do this article justice. There's a lot to it, but there's a video on this article. So look in your email box if you're on the email list, and there'll be the show notes for you, and you can check that out, or just go to the website and click the link there, or you could find it through musttriumph.com. Watch the video. It's about 3 minutes long. He gets his belt, and he really tells a heart touching story of what it was like for him as a purple belt. Gary,
definitely. He went through a lot of hard times there as a purple belt. It was a tough time, and like he starts off, it seems like everybody wants to get promoted, but he was the opposite. He wanted to stay at purple belt.
Yeah, I remember feeling the same thing as a purple belt, and then it's a fun belt. It's a learning belt. Same thing with blue. From blue to purple, I remember getting my butt kicked by purple belts all the time. I don't want to be that. I can't do that. And you get your purple belt, and then you have to have that. He talks about having that trust in your instructor. Hey Sam, you're now a brown belt. Trust my judgment. That's a sign of respect, and he does that as well. But he says that the whole time he's been a purple belt, he's had somebody sick. Somebody he loves has been sick. He lost his sister. He lost his father. His dog, it was a great emotional comfort, recently lost his dog. His mom is currently in the hospital and is pretty sick. So he's going, he talks about in the video, he goes to work, to the hospital, to work, to the hospital, to work, to the hospital. Just comforting his mom, trying to be there for her, and occasionally he'll go off to train. And I think in that situation, that is such a hard place to be. You want to spend as much time with your loved ones as you can, but you have to work. And then you also, I think he's really going to train sometimes, like we're talking about, to be with some friends, to get something different, to re-energize, and just a huge meaning of why he's going. And he's trained all through all this heartache and all this trouble that I think would have put a lot of people hang the gi up, but he's keep training, and it's really taught him about resiliency, and him getting that brown belt. He's had that brown belt for so long, all these interruptions to his training and all this stuff like that. Well, it doesn't bother him. He's going to train when he can. He's going to train when he's able to, and not stress about this tournament. Okay, who cares about a freaking tournament? This guy lost some of the most important people in his life. Tournaments are stupid, it doesn't matter. There's so many more things, and this is crazy. The interview, we talk about this. Like, you think jiu-jitsu's hard, lose a loved one, that's way harder than jiu-jitsu. But in this article, doing jiu-jitsu helps build that resiliency, helps you grow as a person. So we can't really do this article justice. We could read it word for word or play the video, but we're not going to do those things. But we could talk about it a little bit. Gary, what have you noticed in this article?
Well, just like, he talks about the person, makes the belt. You make the belt. And basically, like you were talking back about resilience, there's times he wanted to quit. He wasn't having fun before, and he did quit for some time. And, he had so much going on in his head. Like you said, it was work, hospital, trying to find time to get to the gym. It's tough, but, just, the point that, everything he had been through at that belt, it's like, he didn't necessarily, it seemed like, maybe want to go up to the belt because of so much that had happened, so many memories at that certain belt. I mean, so much had happened, a lot of tragic stuff had happened. I know there's probably a lot of good stuff that happened too, but the tragic, some very, very tragic stuff happened, at that purple belt.
Yeah, I get that feeling as well, Gary. I do think that sometimes we get in those modes of, I want to be the next belt, I see that sometimes in students, and it's really just train. Just train. If you've got something else going on in your life and you need to take a month off, a week off, or some time off, that's okay. The next belt isn't as important as a lot of things in life, obviously. Get in and train when you can. That's important. It's important, I think, for your overall happiness and mood in a time of this extreme stress, like getting in there and remembering that there's, your group of buddies are on the mats every week or every friends. Thursday night or whatever time that you're training, and just getting that social connection, getting that sweat going. I think you would get some relief if you just, you're getting in a hard time, you go out and you run 3 or 4 miles and you come back exhausted. That's some of it. But you did that by yourself. So that's one huge benefit that jiu-jitsu has. And it's hard for me to even talk about the rest of the article, reading his opening about how much he has gone through as a pro belt, and now he's a brown belt, and the belt doesn't really matter to him. Of course it doesn't matter to him, because look at what else he's been through. That's the important stuff in life. It's just a color of belt, and you do add meaning to your color of belt, and he's going to respect it and behave like a brown belt, and he's writing articles like a black belt or a red belt. I don't know. It's just hard for me to move on past that initial part of how much he actually went through as a pro belt. That's just it's heartbreaking to kind of read that somebody in our community had to go through all those things.
Yeah, it's hard to even, like you said, try to even do justice to this article. Because it's not like I've been through this, kind of like what he's went through. It's hard to, there's so many emotions in this article that, like you said, we can't portray it. But the one thing that I thought was really great, he's talking about BJJ as an analogy for life. You never get anywhere by yourself. There are always people helping you. But I love this quote right here, and I kind of almost wish we could probably use this for a quote of the week sometime. But, half the blood and sweat on your belt doesn't belong to you. It belongs to others. And, you think about it, like, it really is. It's a team sport. The friendships you get through there, half that blood's probably not mine. It's it's people getting me from point A to point B. You know, they're teaching me stuff. And you know, even when I'm down going through these tragedies, these people are helping me, you know, heal, helping me get better. You know, jiu-jitsu is helping me that. The people in my classes, you know, in my academy is helping me. And, you know, they're getting you from one point to another. They're helping you along the way.
Yeah, that is a great quote, Gary. Half the blood and sweat on your belt doesn't belong to you; it belongs to others. You know, and he says, set high goals, but also embrace gratitude. If you were stuck, just imagine, you know, as crazy it would be to try to learn jiu-jitsu by yourself. You can't do it.
Yeah.
It would be terrible. Yeah, you would have some, you know, thoughts of the techniques or whatever. You wouldn't be able to do any jiu-jitsu to anybody. I mean,
yeah, but the good thing is I could promote myself really quick
under your own system. But just the idea that you could train by yourself. No, you can't train without a person. And so just remember that gratitude towards your teammates, your coach, the people on the mat with you, your opponents when you're, you know, competing. Gratitude to those people because they're really helping you get better at jiu-jitsu.
Yep, that was a great article. And, you know, definitely check it out. Watch the video, too. But thank you to Sam. Congratulations there also on your brown belt. But just one awesome article.
Yeah, one awesome article by a great person in our community. Happy to share it on the podcast and check out the website. All right, Gary, I think we're ready to roll our interview with Andy Pye. Just a quick reminder, not safe for work environment or maybe for, you know, if you got the kids in the car, you might wait a little while to listen to the rest of this episode. But other than that, amazing interview, and I really enjoyed talking with Andy Pye. So here we go. He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
His De La Riva guard was so strong that his opponent's mom fell over. He has never gotten mat burn, but sometimes you can find burn marks on the mat. Neil Armstrong watched him roll and said it was the most amazing experience of his life.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Andy Pye to the BJJ Break podcast. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Byron.
Andy is coming to us all the way from China. The miracle of Skype, you sound like you're in the room next door. I've definitely had international calls. It didn't sound this good, but I'm happy that the sound is good. How are you doing? What's going on over there today, Andy?
Everything's cool. It's like 10:40 p.m. I just put my kids to sleep, and now I'm on the line with you guys. And just want to say a quick hello to your audience, and thanks for tuning in.
All right. Well, it is the morning where I'm at, and it's all good that we were able to find this time to get together. Andy, you're kind of a pioneer, I would say, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in China. Can you tell us a little bit about your backstory and kind of who you are and where you're at?
Okay, so in 1994, I was going to school in California. I was going to University of California at Riverside in Southern California. And normally when I always go home for vacation, right? Christmas vacation, summer vacation, whatever. So in 94, I was going home on vacation, and this was like early in January of 94. Or maybe it was 93, I can't remember. Anyways, so I get a phone call from my brother, and he says, "Man, dude, Andy, you got to check this out, dude. I saw this thing on television. I have a recording of it, and it's dudes fighting. They're not even using gloves, and they're really fighting. It's not like the WWF, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or the WWE, right?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." Because it's like, "No, dude, it's like Bloodsport. Have you seen that movie Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme?"
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, "Dude, it's like that, man. It's like all the different styles, And I was like, "Oh, okay, so that sounds interesting, but they're really fighting? I mean, like that, that only happens in movies, right?" It's like, no, they're really fighting, dude. And there's this little skinny Brazilian guy, and he like wraps you up with his legs, and he does it on the ground, I'm like, okay, so I don't know what that looks like, right? But it sounds interesting. So he's like, yeah, and stop by my place on the way home. So on my drive back up to Northern California, I stopped at my brother's, and so we spent like a day watching these videotapes that he had recorded from television. And I saw Hoist fight, Mario Sperry, Ralph Gracie. Remember Extreme? What is it, like Extreme Fighting? I think it was called. Have you ever seen that?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay, so you know Ralph Gracie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like when he first came to the States, when he was fighting, he would fight in an event called, I think it was like Extreme Fighting. And that, like Mario Sperry fought there. A lot of Carlson Gracie guys fought in that promotion. And so I saw Hoist, I saw Ralph, I saw Mario Sperry, and it completely blew my mind, And but obviously what stood out the most was this, super skinny Brazilian guy. And he was just like, he was choking dudes out. He was putting them in arm bars. I didn't know what an arm bar was at the time. I didn't know what a triangle was. So my first fight I saw was Hoist versus Dan Severn on videotape.
Yeah. Is that the triangle choke one?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I remember sitting on the edge of my chair the entire time. I was literally on the edge of the chair, right? And my palms were sweating. And like my heart was beating really, really fast because like just watching it gave me like adrenaline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because dudes were really fighting. And yeah, it made such an impression on me. It blew my mind. So I remember looking in the credits, not the credits, but the subtitles when the fighters were coming out. Right? It said that this guy Hoist Gracie was fighting out of Torrance, California, and Torrance, California is not that far away from Riverside. Probably like an hour and 45 minutes drive. So when I got back to school, I picked up the phone and I called information and I said, hey, do you guys have Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or click 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 click. Okay, here you go, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Give me the number, and I was there the next weekend, and I've been training ever since. That was like in 94.
Wow, that's I remember that Dan Severn fight, and it was like they call him Dan the Beast Severn, and he was destroying everybody, and then Hoist's like, I'm going back, and this is happening, and nobody really knew what a triangle choke was either, and it was amazing.
Yeah,
so.
And it completely blew my mind. And what's even more crazy was that he was doing the same thing to every single opponent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you saw him fight, you could tell that he had a definite strategy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like he wasn't just going in there and doing anything. He definitely had a strategy, and he definitely had, he definitely, whatever he was doing, it was like martial art. And the thing is that you saw all these other guys wearing like white gis with black belts. Right?
Yep.
But he was the only guy that was really representing that white gi and that black belt. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I think so.
Like he was the only dude that knew how to fight. All those other guys wearing like, white gis and black belts. They, I don't know what they were doing, but they didn't know how to fight. Right?
At least not how to fight him.
I mean, it wasn't just that he knew how to fight. I mean, that dude. He knew how to defend himself.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's what struck me the most was that, like, not only did he didn't get hurt. It blew my mind.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
It made a serious impression on me, and that's how I got into jiu-jitsu. I was at the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy the following weekend. I walked in and Hoist is like there, like standing in front of me. It completely blew my mind.
Wow, that's great. So tell me about the transition to moving to China and teaching there.
So in 97, yeah, I had a chance to come. My parents by that point had already been living in China. Okay, and they said, hey Andy, why don't you come back to China? Take a look and see if there's any cool opportunities, in China. And I graduated from college in 95, so I really didn't. I wanted to be a rock star back then. I was playing full time in a band and stuff, And, you know, that wasn't really working out. You know, we weren't famous yet. So I was like, okay, yeah, you know, I'll check it out, you know, just thinking like, whatever, you know, I'm just because I wanted to make my parents happy and, you know, and plus I wanted to see China. I'd never been to China. And, so I came check it out. It was really cool, but I still wanted to be a rock star. So I was only here for like, you know, 1 month, and then I came back to the United States. And then, but then, you know, another 6 months went by, and my parents kept calling me, and they were like, man, Andy, you know, lots of new things happening here. You know, a guy like you who can speak Chinese and can speak English, you know, there's a lot of good opportunities, and you can really try to make it big and do something, you know, that you really want to do out here. And so I kind of like fell for the trap, you know what I mean? And I came back at like close towards, was it like September of 97? I came back to Beijing for good. And I've been here ever since.
Well, so you kind of started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in 1994, and by 97, you moved to China.
Yep.
And what was the conditions like for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu there?
Well, the first thing I thought was, you know, China being like the massive martial arts country that it is, that, you know, for sure people would know about jiu-jitsu, and for sure there would be people there training jiu-jitsu, right? But then when I got here, you know, like nobody knew about jiu-jitsu and nobody was training jiu-jitsu. So that was like a pretty big shock for me, you know? Like how can you guys not know about jiu-jitsu, you know? And, you know, I had all my Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in action videos with me. You know what I mean? I brought all my tapes and stuff. And I was trying to find people who knew about this stuff. And yeah, you know, I couldn't find anybody.
So how did you find your first training partners or students?
Well, just my colleagues from work, basically.
Okay.
Right? I came here. I got an internship. And at an IT company at the time, and just like friends that you're hanging out with, your coworkers, right? People that you meet when you go out hanging out, and because when you go to a place and you don't know anybody, you try to build up your little social network so you have stuff to do. You know, I was young back then. I was like 24. So, you know, going out a lot, you know, meeting new friends, meeting new people, and always going to the different gyms, trying to find martial arts places, meeting people at these different, you know, places, and just gradually becoming friends with people, and then and say, hey, you know, I want to continue training. Have you heard about jiu-jitsu before? Do you know what it is? You know, and at that time I found like, you know, some of the Americans who were living in Beijing, like they knew about the UFC, they knew about jiu-jitsu, but not a lot of Europeans, virtually no Chinese knew anything about jiu-jitsu or the Gracie family. And so, you know, in order for me to continue my training, I had to teach these guys, you know, jiu-jitsu. And if you yourself want to be good, then your training partner's got to be good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it wasn't like I was just using them as dummies and just thrashing them. You know what I mean? Like if you did that, then they wouldn't even want to train with you anymore. You know what I mean? So you'd have to like, you know, you'd have to give them like, first of all, you have to give them real skill. You got to give them real knowledge, right? And you got to make sure they can turn that knowledge into a skill. And at the second time, you can't be like trashing them all the time, you know, because, you know, like a guy who's been training, literally a guy who's been training 6 months of jiu-jitsu against a guy who absolutely knows no jiu-jitsu, you completely thrash them. It's not even funny, right?
Yeah.
So, by then I'd been training like almost 3 years, right? So all the guys that I was training with they had no skill at all, right? So it's easy to trash those guys. But the thing is, if you trash your training partner, he don't want to be your training partner for very long.
Yeah.
You know?
They need some of that positive feedback and not just all the negative.
So in order to like kind of maintain my own training and have steady training partners, I had to do whatever I could to keep them interested and to make sure that they were having a good time and that they were learning and that they wanted to continue training, you know, out of pure selfish reasons, right? My own selfish reasons, because I myself wanted to keep training. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's kind of how how my career as a teacher began, you know?
Yeah.
By teaching my friends, and just because I loved jiu-jitsu so much and I wanted to continue training. So that's what I did.
So that was like 19-ish years ago.
Yeah,
so
more or less.
Take me a little bit through maybe a quick history of those past 19 years and where we're at now.
In 97 and 98, I basically started the first jiu-jitsu training center, the first jiu-jitsu academy, I guess you could say, in China. And in the beginning, it was only my friends, and it was just like a little bit of mat space shared from a gym, downtown, and eventually, like, word kind of spread around the jiu-jitsu community, not the jiu-jitsu community, the martial arts community of Beijing,
yeah,
right? Because news from overseas travels pretty fast to China, right? So, if you have anything breaking in the IT sector, like Chinese IT industry, and the Chinese IT media will cover that, right? Or if you have something happening in the sports industry, then the Chinese sports industry will also cover that. And the Chinese martial arts industry, when the UFC broke, it wasn't, much later, like Chinese martial arts industry started to pay attention and started to write articles and talk about jiu-jitsu and how this one dude, the skinny Brazilian guy was like, doing all this and so it wasn't long before basically everybody in Beijing knew about jiu-jitsu, right? It was only like 2 or 3 years, but the whole thing that the Gracie family had to go through, when they first got to the States, you'll never take me to the ground, and one punch I'll just knock you out, and this kind of, like the same sort of like things that were discussed in the United States and Black Belt magazine and in Karate magazine, Illustrated, and like they were all discussing the same thing here in China. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But so in order to do that, I went through some friends who had a website, and they were organizing like challenge fights. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Between
all the different fights. I mean, between all the different clubs and all the different styles, right? And so me and a couple of my students, right, we decided to go to the challenge fight, to represent jiu-jitsu. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this was let me think. This was in 2003. Okay, in 2003. And so we went, and I fought this. He was a kickboxer, right? And I've had one MMA fight. Okay, I've got a perfect score. I'm 1-0. But so I ended up fighting this kickboxer, and he kicked me so hard in the arm. This dude broke my arm, And but the thing is that with jiu-jitsu, if you can stay calm and how to like keep the position and things like this, right? You still have a chance, So what ended up happening is, even though that he broke my arm, I still managed to get to the clinch. I took him down, and no, I think what happened was, I can't remember. Oh, I think I pulled guard, right? And from the guard, he tried to back away. I sat up with kind of like I forgot what kind of sweep I used. Anyways, I got on top. I took him down, and I ended up mounting him, and he tried to push me, right? He put his hands on my chest, yeah? And he went to go push me, and he extended his arm straight, and I caught him I put him in an arm bar, and he tapped. And this fight was the first MMA fight ever broadcasted on Chinese television.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. That was back in 2003.
Andy, take me back a little bit more. What part of your arm, what bone in the arm did he break? And then did you know that it broke at the time?
He broke my left forearm.
Okay.
He broke my left forearm. Yeah.
Did you feel it or hear it snap?
Yeah, I heard it. It like hurt like crazy. You know what I mean? And when I didn't know if it was broken. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. But it was like wow, this it really hurt. You know what I mean? Because I'd never had a broken arm before. I don't know what it feels like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right? But and plus, it's like it's different when someone puts you into a submission and you can feel your ligaments like tearing. That's completely different than having someone kick you and having something break instantly. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so.
In many cases, that I think is almost easier to accept than being put into an arm bar and have your ligaments slowly being ripped out. You understand what I'm saying? I think that's far more excruciating than having someone break your bone just like boom instantly like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I do remember is on the ground when I was hitting him, because it was my left forearm, like the outside bone on my. Because like imagine someone throws a roundhouse kick at your head, right? Yeah. And then you take your lead arm up to block it. Imagine like I don't know if you ever did Taekwondo as a kid, but you know how they do like they do like the stance where they use their arm to like block whatever's coming at you, right? So I don't know any stand up, you know what I mean? But I reached my hand out to block and bam, this guy, he was like basically a professional, sanda kickboxer, right? And bam, he broke my arm. And I remember when I didn't know it was broken then. Okay, but on the ground when I was punching him with my left arm, and every time I punched him, I could feel my bones moving because it wasn't like because it was broken. You know what I mean? It wasn't like it wasn't in one place anymore. I was like, oh my god, I hit him like 1-2 times. It didn't feel right, and I stopped hitting him. I was like, man, I can't do that. Something is seriously wrong, And by that time, I had already mounted him, and he pushed, and boom, instantly into an armbar.
Wow.
So yeah, it worked out good.
Yeah.
Good that he kicked my arm and not kick me in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of course, if it wasn't for my jiu-jitsu training, of course I would have tapped right away, and obviously I wouldn't have even fought the guy. This is the thing. I think a lot of and this kind of I'm trying to like keep it on subject, but I'm kind of veering off a little bit. I think back then, the old school jiu-jitsu guys, I consider myself an old school jiu-jitsu guy because, I didn't get into jiu-jitsu because I saw an IBJJF tournament. You understand? I saw jiu-jitsu and got into jiu-jitsu because I saw Royce Gracie fight in the UFC. So I think all guys who did jiu-jitsu back then, they all had this like they all have this kind of like this feeling that they have is that, man, I would love to test myself to see if what I learned really works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Because I started training at the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy where they had challenge fights all the time. Guys would come in all the time to fight. And there were guys that, all the instructors at the academy all had a chance to show that jiu-jitsu really worked. You know what I mean? And me being a jiu-jitsu guy and training there, I always wanted the chance to say, oh, wow, man, I'd love to test myself to see if it worked. And finally I got a chance and, I don't need to test myself anymore, man. I promised my parents I'd never do that again. But, it was probably the coolest thing I ever did in my life. And it was the scariest and it was the most exhilarating thing at the same time, Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. Andy, we've made some comparisons a little bit about early jiu-jitsu in the United States. And really, you've gone through the early jiu-jitsu in China. Are people ever coming in wanting to challenge themselves against a jiu-jitsu person in your academy, or is that really not happening?
No, we've had people do that. We've had people come into the academy and say, "Oh, jiu-jitsu is no good. I'll do this and do that." And okay, well, let's roll or let's fight. Most of the guys, they don't want to fight anymore. You know what I mean? Because they've seen enough of the UFCs. Right. But they say, oh, I know some kind of like pressure point technique, or I know some kind of, special sort of thing. Right. That can negate, the jiu-jitsu, and it's just not happening. You know what I mean? I believe jiu-jitsu is for sure the most efficient and the best martial art ever invented, known to man. I'm a diehard jiu-jitsu guy to the very end. Nothing is better than jiu-jitsu.
I agree. If not just for how fun it is that when I get on the mat, but it's a very effective.
Jiu-jitsu is the only way to fight when you have no way left to fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. if you're big and strong and you can knock fools out with your fists, awesome, But if you're not, sorry, bro, you ain't got nothing but jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? And it's like if you're a big guy and you also know jiu-jitsu, it's not even fair.
So, Andy, you mentioned a little bit about the culture and people having like a good martial arts background or culture in China.
Yep.
Do most students coming to you already have a background in martial arts, or are they brand new and they just want to learn?
No, most of the guys that I was teaching, they were all like regular guys, white collar guys, not very athletic, and and none of them ever wanted to be fighters. You know what I'm saying? But they all thought that, wow, like me myself, my reason for training jiu-jitsu wasn't because I wanted to be a fighter, but because I thought, oh my God, this thing, I mean, you watch Hoist fight in the UFCs and you know that what he's doing is a real skill. That's not something that just it wasn't luck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? You could tell that what he was doing there was a system behind it, right? And if there's a system behind something, then it's much easier to accept. It's much easier to learn. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like you saw a bunch of strikers go up there and some guys get knocked out, some guys don't get knocked out. And even the guys who did knock out other people, sometimes they got knocked out. So it's like you can't really accept their system. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But Hoist was doing the same thing every single fight. Maintain the distance, close the distance, clinch, take down to the ground, get a position, and boom, submit. You know what I mean? He did that every single time, right? So right away that there was a system behind that. It's not bullshit. Yeah,
he was able to like funnel them into a place and then get a victory every time.
Right, but the most amazing thing is that system can then be like transmitted to another person, and that other person can follow that same system and be just as successul. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's the most amazing thing about jiu-jitsu that I saw at the time. It's been fun talking to you about like the kind of your history and stuff like that. I do want to know about the current state and maybe a little bit of a history of the development of jiu-jitsu in China. Okay. All right. So I'm going to be a little bit critical here.
Okay.
I think that because now there's a lot of jiu-jitsu academies here in China, and there's a lot of I would say charlatans, man. Just like in the United States, when jiu-jitsu started to get big, you had a lot of Brazilians coming over from Brazil to teach in the United States, and now you have a lot of Brazilians coming to teach jiu-jitsu in China. And I would say that a lot of these guys, they're horrible teachers, horrible teachers, because I'm looking at the students that are being trained, and I'm looking at their level of jiu-jitsu, and like their level of jiu-jitsu is horrible. I'm not saying that all the instructors are horrible. I'm saying some of the instructors are horrible.
Yeah.
I know there's also a lot of good Brazilian teachers here also, but there's just as many bad Brazilian teachers as there are good Brazilian teachers. You know what I'm saying? And it's like if you look at the early UFCs, one of the most and I mentioned this earlier, one of the things that stood out the most to me was that Hoist never got hurt. He knew how to defend himself.
Yeah.
He knew how to defend himself. It wasn't just about winning a fight. Nowadays, because of the rules of MMA, like guys are going in there to win fights. You know what I'm saying? Right? And if they get stuck in a bad position or whatever, it's like they don't know to even defend themselves in that position. They just know that they have to escape the mount. You know what I mean? And they know the standard escapes, trap and roll trap the arm, trap the foot, or, shrimp and hip escape or what. But they have no sense of timing on when that should occur. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what they do is they start either trying to do the trap and roll, or they start to hip escape, the instant they get mounted. Right? And why? Because they're taking shots to the face. You know what I'm saying? And when you get mounted and start taking shots to the face, I mean, it becomes horrifying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? And when you're horrified in that position, you'll do anything to escape, including put your arm in the wrong position, or put your neck in the wrong position, right? And this is when your opponent on top can take advantage of you, right? Because he's not even trying to hurt you. He's just trying to, slap you a few times to get you to shift into a position where he can take your arm or take your shoulder or take your neck, So what I see in China is like the students in China, they're not, especially the professional MMA fighters, they're only learning the sport version of jiu-jitsu, even for MMA. You know what I'm saying? Right? They're learning an MMA version of jiu-jitsu, but for sport. They're not even learning any self-defense. You know what I'm saying? Right? They don't even I'm sure there's like hardcore jiu-jitsu guys where I'm sure if you mounted Rickson Gracie, okay, you would not be able to hurt him. I'm positive of that.
Yeah.
If you mounted him, he won't even have to escape from you. You know what I'm saying? He could just sit there and hold you in a way where you couldn't do anything. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? And the more you try to hit him, the more space you give him to escape. And that's when he would escape. He wouldn't just try to escape the second you mounted him. You know what I mean? Right? That works if you're in the same, weight class. Right? But if the guy's much bigger than you, then, what if you can't escape right away? Then what? Do you still have to be able to protect yourself in that position? You know what? Does that make sense?
You need to be safe throughout the fight, even in a bad spot.
Exactly. Right? So let's say Andre Galvão mounts you, right? You're not. I don't know what your skill level.
It's not anywhere near that.
Okay? But you're not going to fucking escape the mount from fucking Andre Galvão. You're not. It's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? So then what? You just let him, bust your face up? No way, bro. You gotta. I don't think any of the athletes in the professional MMA athletes in China are learning that right now. You understand?
Yeah, and that's
Does that make sense?
Yeah, is that the kind of the difference between the sport versus self-defense, or is that just a variation of the sport? That
well, yeah, all of them are trying to escape that position, so the other guy doesn't get points for being there.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, right? Right? They're worried about, if he mounts me the entire time, and dude, if you just hold him in the right way, he won't be able to hurt you. He won't be able to do anything to you, right? And then the more he tries to hit you, the more space he needs, and the more he's going to try to create, and that's when you can escape, right?
Yeah.
Or that's when you can roll him. You know what I mean? Is when he is so frustrated from trying to hit you that he makes his mistake, But the thing is that the guys are afraid that, he's been sitting on me the whole entire time. They're going to give the round to him, right? Oh, well, so what? You're going to finish him, But it's different now because it's more of it's a sport, right? You have 3 5-minute rounds and that's it, So if you can't do anything in that through those 15 minutes, right? Now is about athleticism. That's my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, that's
right? The hardcore old school UFCs. That's real fighting, man. I understand why it needs to be different. Why it, in order to get a bigger audience and things like this. But man, I really miss the old school way, because that's real self-defense, right? Now you can instead of really learning how to escape, you just rely on the referee to separate you.
Yeah,
right. You need to learn all those. You don't need to learn all those ways. You just do something to make to stall the fight and make the referee separate you, right? Right. Yeah. Back then, you were doing it because that was a way to survive, right? And if the fight kept on going, right, you would still need to figure out a way to get out of that position or to get out of that, whatever difficulty that you have right there, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my thing, and I think nowadays, a lot of people are they only train jiu-jitsu because of IBJJF. People want to do barambolos and things like this, and they think that's great, and I think that's cool too. But to me, that's not jiu-jitsu, man. Jiu-jitsu, IBJJF jiu-jitsu is just a set of rules. That's all it is. Just a set of rules. Guys can train sambo and still go into the IBJJF tournament and still win tournaments. It doesn't mean that they have good jiu-jitsu, right? It just means that they won a certain tournament under these types of rules, right? So you don't have to even be a jiu-jitsu guy to enter an IBJJF tournament and win. You could be, let's say you're the top sambo player in the world, and and you're a hell of an athlete, right? And you just go in and you just footlock everybody, right? Does it mean you're a good jiu-jitsu guy? No, it doesn't mean you're a good jiu-jitsu guy. It just means that you're good at those rules, right? But those rules aren't jiu-jitsu. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You're wanting to encompass more of a practical self-defense aspect into it than just the pure look at the rules, use the rules to win a match.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with using rules to win a match. You know what I mean? Because I love sport jiu-jitsu. It's fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really awesome. You know, but I'm saying that a lot of the people who are doing jiu-jitsu these days, they're getting into jiu-jitsu not because of they saw, the UFC. And even if they did see the UFC, they're watching the UFC from a 3-5 minute round with weight classes UFC, right? Which is different than no weight classes, no time limits, no rules. That's a complete different style of jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what would you be better? What do you want to be better at? Do you want to be better at that situation, or do you want to be the best at this situation where they give you all sorts of rules and you just play the rules to win? Right?
Yeah. Culturally wise, is there a big audience for activities like MMA or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that want to come and watch these? Or I remember ADCC was there.
ADCC was here. ADCC was awesome here in 2013 because the venue that they used was literally like 5 minutes away from my academy. and one day I remember I walked into the academy and it was like there was 10, 15 world champions on the mat. Gracie Baja was training out of there. Atos was training out of there. Alliance was training out of there. I mean, it's crazy. You walk in and it's like Andre Galvão and JT Torres and Keenan and the Mendes brothers and all of them on the mat at the same time. Right? And then like 2 hours later, there's like Braulio and Otavio Souza and Romulo Bahal and all the Gracie Baja guys. And then boom, Fabio Gurgel is there and Gabby is there and all the it's crazy. It's crazy. Cyborg was there, Hickson and Crone were there, Tanquinho was there, and man, it's like a kid walking into a candy store. It's really awesome.
Did having ADCC hold the event there have any lasting effect on Jiu-Jitsu in Beijing?
Honestly, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think so. Just because I think if Jiu-Jitsu in China is going to develop, then it's really going to depend on Chinese people and no outside influence, no outside factor. Of course, it's great to have the top guys from around the world to come and to teach and to really help. But the thing is that none of those guys are going to invest long term into this market. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like they come, they teach, they get the money, they split. Great, great for whatever academy brought them out, and great for whatever instructor that came out. But at the end of the day, it's Chinese jiu-jitsu. In order for it to get big, it's going to depend on Chinese people. Yeah.
How is the condition of wrestling or judo in China?
It's like this. So only within the last, only since within 2008, right after the Beijing Olympics, has there really been a development in the sports industry, in the commercial sports industry, in the privatized sports industry.
Okay.
So before, if you trained judo, it was because you were a government-sponsored athlete. You basically worked for the government, okay? And your job was to fight in the national championships. Your job was to, win the national championships, to get a spot to fight in the world championships, and to get a seed in the world championship, to get like a number, like a placement, a ranking, so that you can fight in the Olympics. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the only reason why people did judo. Nobody did judo for fun.
Is that changing?
Same goes for wrestling. Yeah, I think it's changing. I think more people now do judo for fun than they do wrestling for fun. Yeah, I don't really see any wrestling schools. You know what I mean? Or wrestling, in the United States. I think you can be as young as 4 or 5 years old, and you can start wrestling at that age.
Yeah.
Right, for fun. right?
Yeah.
Like parents put their kids into like a wrestling club, not because they really want their kid to do tournaments, not unless their father was like a wrestler back in school, right? But a lot of parents will put their kids in wrestling just for the sheer physical exercise, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was growing up, I knew guys who were wrestling, right? They were always on, some guys on the school team, right? And then even after school, they would still have they would go to wrestling clubs, right? Where they would, right? A lot of people are doing it for competition as well, but nobody really does it for fun. I don't think, right? People do judo for fun. I think jiu-jitsu, more people do jiu-jitsu for fun than they do wrestling or judo.
Okay. You mentioned kids. How is the kids in
jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu in China is the first sport that was created entirely by the people. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And because we haven't spent $1 from the government. All these people do jiu-jitsu because they want to do jiu-jitsu, not because they're being forced to do jiu-jitsu, and not because they're doing jiu-jitsu because they get a chance to compete in the Olympics or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So all of the jiu-jitsu that's happening in China is happening simply because it's become commercial. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, which is cool, which is really cool.
Yeah, there's a demand for it.
Exactly. There's a demand for it. People want to do it. People want to do jiu-jitsu because they recognize, basically all of the health benefits and, all of the character benefits, and especially for the kids. We've got a kids program at our academy, and, parents bring their kids in because, they want their kids to be more confident. They want their kids to be more disciplined. They want their kids to possess real self-defense skills in case, they run into a bully or whatever at school. And jiu-jitsu can do all of that and I think, in fact, jiu-jitsu, I think, is the only martial art that can do all of that. You can put a kid in boxing, but it's like that, if that kid that does boxing has got to hurt another kid in order to defend himself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. And if he goes up against another kid that knows jiu-jitsu, he's dead. He's dead. Right. Jiu-jitsu, again, nothing beats jiu-jitsu. So if there's any parents out there listening, and you should put your kids into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and like you said, they don't have to take damage or give damage
they don't have to
do
take damage. They don't have to inflict damage, right? Because nowadays, stuff with the law. I mean, I don't know, Byron, are you a parent?
No.
No? Okay, so one day when you do become a parent, right, if you become a parent, you don't ever want to get a phone call from the school saying that your kid beat the crap out of somebody.
Yeah.
And that's not cool, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not cool, And jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu really teaches you to measure yourself, you know what I mean? You could be the best and still know that in a real fight, man, you could get stabbed. Right, you could destroy all the guys in the academy, and still understand that on the street you could get stabbed. No matter how good your jiu-jitsu is, you could still get stabbed. Right, so There's a lot of things. Jiu-jitsu really helps. It's the best. It helps you see things clearly, I think.
Yeah, it helps you stay in that reality, and like you're saying.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's a good way to put it. It keeps you grounded.
Do you think that part of that is the reason why it's hard for somebody to go from a black belt in another martial art to come learn jiu-jitsu because they have that sense that they've already know how to defend themselves, they already know everything, and then coming into jiu-jitsu school for the first time, you really are brand new at something, and that's hard for adults to get over?
I think any adult who takes a clear look at themselves, and especially if they're a martial artist, I mean, especially if they're doing martial arts for the right reasons, I don't think it's that much difficulty to transition.
Okay.
I did all kinds of martial arts as a kid. You know what I mean? And it wasn't – well, I guess I wasn't tied to any one martial art, and I never got my black belt in any one martial art. But it was jiu-jitsu has been the only martial art that I've stuck with for this long. I mean, I've been since what 90s. What is it? 94. 94. I started training, right? So, I mean, that's a long time, you know. In fact, Byron, jiu-jitsu is the only activity I've ever done that I've stuck with for this long time. There's nothing else that I've ever done that I've stuck with for this long time. Right?
Saying that, and then I also want to get some advice for students. You've seen a lot of – we all see students come and go, and you've done jiu-jitsu for so long. Do you ever see like a trait, a personality trait or something like that you see in a student when they're fairly new and you think that they're going to stick with it for a long time and they're going to be able to get good at this and enjoy it?
Well, this is the thing. I think a lot of it depends on the instructor. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Right? And I think it's the instructor's fault if the student doesn't stick with it. You know what I mean? Well, okay, I shouldn't say it's the instructor's fault, but it's like as an instructor, okay, things are changing nowadays, but I think most instructors have gone through a phase where they where they've become good at something through what I call trial by fire, right? I think a lot of academies are like this, you know, where if you want to get good, sorry, you just basically got to get your ass kicked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know what school are you training at? Can I ask?
Yeah, I train at a school here in town. It's called Fox Fitness. I don't know. We've got there's myself and 2 other black belts. And
are you a black belt?
Yes.
Okay.
And
so how long have you been training?
Since 2002, I think.
Since 2002. Okay, so you've been training quite a long time already. Now, like, what was your affiliation, your instructor? Did you have a bunch of instructors, or have you had this one instructor this whole time?
I've had so being here in Kansas is probably similar to being in Beijing.
Right.
We don't have a lot of people here, especially back years ago, that would teach jiu-jitsu at a high level. I started training under a purple belt, and I've had different black belts come into town and teach some things. So I've had affiliation change. My instructor now is Andre Montero, and see him several times a year. But I've definitely had learned a lot from a lot of different people.
Okay, have you ever been to Brazil?
No, I have not.
Okay, so let me. Okay, I've never been to Brazil either. Okay, but I know a lot of Brazilians, and you can even like sort of like double check and verify this with your instructor. That like basically in Brazil, what they do is like you come to the gym, and then they give you a gi, right? And then you just get on the mat and you start sparring from the first day.
Yeah, I could see that in a lot of places.
Right, and it's not just like that in Brazil. It's like that here in China, and it's like that in the United States at a lot of places. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, dude, if you let a dude fucking spar on his first day, man, he's liable to either himself get seriously hurt or he's liable to seriously hurt somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, how is he supposed to like something when he gets injured? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how, you want him to stick with it, but it's like, he's injured and he's injuring other people. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe a white belt should be. I'm not saying a white belt should not be allowed to spar. I don't believe a white belt on his first day should be allowed to spar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I believe that after a certain amount of mat hours, okay, he should be allowed to spar and he should be encouraged to spar. You know what I mean? But it's like, most academies around the world, they teach by throwing the student to, a den of wolves, right? And if you don't get shredded by these wolves and you can tough it out, then you become a wolf. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you get shredded, sorry, bye-bye. It's not that it's your problem. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I don't believe that that's the best way to teach, right?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. You mentioned already that if you're a big tough guy, you don't need jiu-jitsu. But if you're the smaller guy, we don't need to chase those smaller guys away right at the first day.
You know what I mean? And like the small guys, some of the small guys are the best training partners because they're so technical. You know what I mean? But it's like, how technical can you be when you're injured all the time?
Yeah.
Because you were thrown to, you know what I mean? And this is the thing, I think a lot of old school teachers, because they had to go through that trial by fire, right? They think it's like a sissy or pussy ass way to teach by not doing through trial by fire. You know what I mean? Like, go hard or go home. Dude, I think that's the fucking lamest thing I've ever heard in my life. Go hard or go home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Dude, I'm sorry, man, but I'm a fucking lawyer, or dude, I'm a doctor. You know, I'm not trying to be a professional fighter, you know, but just because I'm not trying to be a professional fighter, it doesn't mean that I can't benefit from learning jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean that I should not be allowed to learn how to defend myself. It does not mean that I should not be allowed to fucking gain the confidence that, you know, all you guys have from knowing jiu-jitsu, right? You know, it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be allowed to you know, grow and develop and become a better person by learning jiu-jitsu. You know, what only professional fighters are allowed to do that? No, I'm sorry, man. That's not how it is. You know?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So critical, but you know, it's like a complete, you know, man, jiu-jitsu is a lifestyle. You know what I mean? And, you know, you're badass because you've decided to be a professional fighter. You know what I'm saying? Right? So you spend 8 hours a day on the mat, right, rolling, you know what I mean? But once you know jiu-jitsu can be applied to every single part of your life, you know what I mean, right? You might be a badass on the mat, but you're a complete scumbag off the mat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? Does it mean you're good at jiu-jitsu? No, it means you're good at arm bars, bro. It means that you're good at beating people up. It doesn't mean you're good at jiu-jitsu, right? You could be a black belt in jiu-jitsu and still be a fucking dirty drug dealer. You know what I mean? You can be a black belt, you know, in arm bars and triangles, you know, but, you know, be horrible in other aspects of your life, you know. You can be cheating on your wife. You can be – you know what I'm saying, right? But this doctor, he's the best surgeon in the world. You know what I mean, right? And he got there due to the principles that he learned from doing jiu-jitsu. You understand what I'm saying? Right?
Yes, yeah.
Or he's a great businessman, or he's a great politician, or he's a great father, or, you know, jiu-jitsu is about control and it's about efficiency. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah.
It's not just armbarring somebody, right? How can you armbar somebody, you know, heavier and stronger than you that also knows jiu-jitsu, right? It's about timing, it's about baiting, it's about tricking. It's, you know what I mean? It's about, you know, playing weak in one area and forcing the other guy to make a mistake. You know what I mean? You know, these are all like mental concepts which can be applied in every aspect of your life, you know, at work, you know, with family relationships, with business relationships, you know, it can be applied with, you know, life, you know, you run into problems, maybe, you know, you and, you know, your wife, your girlfriend are going through divorce, or maybe you can save yourself from going through a divorce by, you know, really seeing the problem clearly. And the reason you can see this problem clearly is because of what you learned in jiu-jitsu. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and I'm with you on the if people want to roll hard and beat each other up, that's fine too. But you're chasing away a lot of students when you do that.
Exactly. I'm not Byron. I'm not saying that rolling hard is not good.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know what you're saying, but it's on your first day, I do agree. It's a great.
Not on your first day.
Yeah.
You know, and there are guys who will never roll hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Because they're rolling hard in the office. You understand what I'm saying? Right? They're rolling hard in the office, right? And, you know, your, like, definition of hard for him is impossible. Why? Because he's a lawyer, you know?
Yeah.
Right? You go hard and go home. You're a fucking professional athlete, bro. You know? You can't expect for everybody to roll as hard as you. You understand?
Yeah.
He's not a pussy because he can't roll as hard as you. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah.
But just because you can armbar the shit out of him, you're hard? No, bro. It ain't like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It ain't like that. You know? And in China, it's like people are getting brainwashed. They think that that's what jiu-jitsu is. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's not what jiu-jitsu is. People don't know what jiu-jitsu is. Not here. You know? Not even a lot of the Brazilians who are teaching. You know? Because that's what they say. Oh, roll hard or go home. You know?
Yeah.
Dude. You go home. You know,
home. I mean, I think we had a similar but changing thing in the United States as jiu-jitsu has been here longer and longer. You know, you come into class, you get beat up your first day, and then you come back, you get beat up a little bit less, and now I think it's more common to.
Everybody has to go through that. You know what I mean? even if, right, because it's your first day, and by nature, jiu-jitsu is an extremely tough sport, and it weeds out people with weak character. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? People who can't objectively look at themselves, people who can't accept that, if they have too much pride or they can't accept this humility, it's like you're going to get weeded out real quick. But if you can put up with that, if your character is strong enough to go through that, dude, there's nothing you can't go through. What's worse than having a guy, that's 20 kilograms? 20 kilograms is like 44 pounds, right? So what's worse than having a guy 44 pounds mounted on top of you trying to choke you? What's worse than that?
That's it's a tough spot to be in.
Guess what? Life can be worse than that.
Yeah.
Life can be worse than that. Okay? Right? If you have a friend who just committed suicide, I bet you it feels like it's a lot worse than that. Than a guy that's only 44, pounds mounted on top of you trying to choke you. I bet you through your life you're going to go through stuff that's even way more difficult than that. Okay? But it's like, how do you like temper yourself, your character, in order to be able to face that and get past that? Well, you have to objectively look at your life, and you have to, you have to take everything that you've learned from jiu-jitsu and try to apply that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's kind of similar looking at, the hard times on the mat versus the hard times, in your personal life or life off the mat. And then also the hard times on the mat help you for the one time that you actually get attacked off the mat. It's going to be worse. It's going to be a lot harder. It'll be crazy, but hopefully you've developed some skill and ability to deal with that. While you're on the mat.
And another thing, like I just want to share with you real quick, there's probably a lot of, and this is for the people that out there that are listening, it's like, I used to train a lot of professional MMA fighters here in China, you know what I mean? And I had one student who, he trashed a lot of guys in the gym, right? And he would trash a lot of guys in competition. He's good, really good, but it's like, on the street, he would get into street fights, and he would try to fight 10 guys, and then these 10 guys, beat him within an inch of his life and put him in the hospital, or just because they said something, maybe said something mean to his girlfriend. In this case, I would say that he didn't really learn jiu-jitsu. You understand what I'm saying? Right? He's good at arm bars. He's good at triangles. He's good at guillotines. He's good at the rear naked choke. He's good at takedowns. He's good at position, but he's not good at jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say he didn't. In the learning of jiu-jitsu, you need to learn about your ego, and when somebody insults your ego, you can let that go. And so if somebody insults you in the street.
Oh, you talk to me like that? Don't you know I'm a professional MMA fighter? Let me prove to you that I'm a professional MMA fighter. Right? He knocked out 2 or 3 guys, right? And then the rest of the 7, took metal sticks and beat him in the head and put him, within 1 inch of his life. And it's like, I am sure you could have avoided that situation altogether if you would have just accepted the fact that there was 10 guys, and just accepted the fact that they were fucking pieces of shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you can't change that.
Yeah. Hey, Byron, when you walk down the street, you don't go out of your way to step on dog shit, do you?
That's true.
You don't, because you don't want to get your shoe dirty, right?
Yeah.
So why do you want to be rolling on the ground with dog shit? All those guys are pieces of shit. Why do you want to be rolling with them? You know what I mean? Yeah. If you don't step on dog shit when you walk down the street, you certainly don't want to be fucking rolling with dog shit on the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, people need to check their egos, man. And if you're learning jiu-jitsu correctly and you have a good instructor who's teaching you to not just armbar people, okay?
Yeah.
And to not just like get position on people, because that's not jiu-jitsu. That's just getting position on people. That's just armbarring people. That's just triangling people, okay? That's not jiu-jitsu, right? Jiu-jitsu is different. It's a lot more philosophical. It's a lot more deep, and it's a complete realistic look at yourself. It's jiu-jitsu is about looking inwardly and not what you can, not how many guys you can destroy on the mat in competition.
Yeah. Andy,
for me, that's what it is.
Andy,
I can't say for everybody.
Yeah, I guess it is a lot of things for a lot of people, but I am running a little short on time. Could you give us a little bit of contact information or maybe a website that people can go to learn about your training?
Yeah. If you guys are happening to come to Beijing on vacation, or if you're happening to coming to Beijing on a business trip and you want to stop by and I want to get some training in, then you're always free to contact me. My email is Andy, ANDY, okay, at artofwarfc.com. Okay, so just shoot me an email, and we're happy to accommodate all the guys from the BJJ Brick podcast. Okay, and if you want to see our website, then just go to artofwarfc.com. Okay, that's going to be set up very, very shortly, and it might all be in Chinese right now. There's like a reroute to our Chinese website, but we got a lot of really cool fights. If you want to see what Chinese Jiu-Jitsu looks like, if you want to see what Chinese MMA looks like, then come check it out.
Awesome. I'll put links to everything on the show notes. And Andy, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to talk to you, Byron.
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Cool, man. Take care.
You too. All right. I want to thank Andy Pye for the interview. I'm grateful that there's a technology like Skype to where Andy really does sound like he's in, just across the street from me, and he's really half a world away. And we mentioned before there's some not safe language in here, but man, he's passionate. If you're go hard and go home and you're chasing off all the new people, you're not doing yourself any service, and you're certainly not helping them. If a new guy comes in and you try to break him right away, that's not helping anybody learn jiu-jitsu. If your idea of jiu-jitsu is to go out there and get as many fights as you can, you're not learning jiu-jitsu. You're not getting it. There's so much more to this than just learning how to fight and how to choke people. There's so much more. I mean, look at the article of the week and how much jiu-jitsu has done for Sam, and to think that if you could chase that person away right at the beginning, how tragic that would be that he wouldn't have jiu-jitsu in this. So yeah, there's some colorful language in there, but I definitely appreciate his passion, and I didn't want to change any of this interview. Sometimes if somebody drops one or two F-bombs, I might cut it out just so I could keep it as a non-explicit rating, but this was not worth it. I wanted to keep his true passion in there, and I definitely appreciated that. Yeah,
and like I was saying earlier, that passion is what would make me want to train with him. I mean, first of all, I think his attitude is just incredible, and that's the type of person I would look for in training. But then that passion just, goes above and beyond. If you're that passionate, I kind of look at it as like, how could I go wrong training with this person? So, and like you said, if you bleep those out, I think some of that passion wouldn't come across as much as it does. So, just an incredible interview.
Yep. Hey, Gary, last week we had a really fun time sharing the Mat Tales with everybody. What Mat Tales is, check it out if you missed the episode last week, is people will actually sit down and type up a story about what happened to them, jiu-jitsu related. Go back, we've got, I think, 6 of them now, and it's just like some crazy stuff happens sometimes, and sometimes it's jiu-jitsu related. Type it up, send it to us at bjjbrick@gmail.com, or really anything you want to send to us, that's a good way to do it, and we'll go ahead and make it into an audio story and share it with everybody. People love them, but you know what, Gary? People don't always type them up for us and send them to us. We get a lot of feedback. Hey, that was so funny that guy put in the other guy's mouthpiece and didn't even realize it was the wrong thing to do, or they adopted that cat and they thought that it had passed away. They threw it in the trash can, and then the cat came running out of the trash can. Crazy stories, but we need people to actually take the time. I don't know if it's 5 minutes or 30, and write up a crazy story that happened to you and send it to us, and so we can continue to keep that segment alive. Because right now, like Oscar the Cat, segment's kind of dead right now, Gary.
It's definitely dead. So we do need you to send us some stories. I mean, we'll put the nice music and everything around it, but I tell you, people are loving it. We're getting a lot of great feedback, and it's funny. I mean, some guy missed a seminar because he got locked in the bathroom. Another guy had a bout of maybe diarrhea on somebody's face.
Yep.
So there's some crazy stuff that could happen.
Yeah,
and I guarantee you people have seen some crazy stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we can list them all, but we'll stop there. And but the thing about this is, because there's no Matt Tales, we have Gary's audiobook coming out very soon. This is a time in the podcast where I will throw a title at Gary, and he will have to make it into an audiobook on the spot. So,
and I don't like that.
Yeah, he definitely, but he does thrive in the situation. You know, you put that Gary in the improv situation, and he does pretty well. So, Gary, it's October. You know, Halloween is coming up. You know, the time where little kids put their costumes on and ring doorbells, and we give them candy. And I'm just curious to see what's in your book, the BJJ Guide to Surviving Halloween. What do you got in there, Gary?
Well, Byron, I'm glad that I am coming out with this book, thanks to your advice. Because like you said, October 31st is All Saints Day. Is that what Halloween's called?
I don't know, Gary. It's definitely a time for zombies and creepiness and bad things and candy.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we're going to start with it's not all just about defending yourself, from these goblins, because we're going to start right off the bat with candy. You think about it. What happens if you eat a lot of candy, Byron?
I generally enjoy that, and I do like candy.
But what happens?
Long term, I'll get some cavities, and I'll probably gain a little weight, and it's just a downward trend.
Yeah. So basically, chapter 1, we're going to talk about how how jiu-jitsu basically benefits you, if you eat a lot of candy. I mean, if you eat a lot of candy and you don't do jiu-jitsu, you're going to gain weight. You're probably going to, blood pressure goes up a little bit, cholesterol goes up a little bit or whatever, but you're not going to be as healthy. So that's the key. I mean, who wants to eat a lot of candy? You do. I do. We all do. So basically, we're right off the bat, we're going to explain the benefits. By burning those calories, we're going to keep our weight in check, and we'll be able to enjoy a little bit of candy. But that's not why most people are getting the book. That's just a benefit of training jiu-jitsu. But what's really going to happen is, you think about Halloween. People do some crazy stuff on Halloween. Why? And, we talk about the premise behind it. You're dressed up in costumes, so nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's easy to throw firecrackers at people and throw rocks and, toilet paper trees. And you got a lot of goblins out there. So that's where jiu-jitsu comes in handy. We're going to do stuff like pull guard. Somebody comes to your house and starts trouble. I want you to pull guard, go to a single leg X. And, from there, you can, it's a benefit to both parties. Because you think about it. You get in that position with some guy who probably just put a mask on, doesn't have a whole outfit, because he's just out, creating mischief. If you're out for real trick-or-treating, you got a good costume on. But you pull guard, go to that single leg X, basically, go to a double outside ashi, rip his leg off. Then what do you got? You've got a pirate. Just
help him with his costume, yeah.
Yeah, so you think you're helping that guy out. Okay, so let's go to another thing, and let's just say we live in a farm area. What do I got out back? I got some cows and horses. Some guy comes to your house and starts trouble. What's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to snap him down into a front headlock. Once you get that headlock, you're going to go for a high elbow guillotine. What's going to happen to that guy? His head's going to fall off. So what do? You put him on a horse. What do we have?
Oh, I know where this is going, Gary. Headless horseman.
Yeah. So, I mean, most people just think about the offensive opportunities, ripping legs off, chopping heads off. But man, those guys who are on the receiving end, they are now going to get more candy because they're going to have great costumes.
Gary.
So, yeah.
I got you here on the line, the author of this great book. You do have one chapter that I really haven't got to yet, but I want to read, so I'll just have you just kind of brief me on a few things.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The chapter, I think, is 17, Fighting in the Doorway. You get the trick-or-treaters ring the doorbell, you open up, and then you got your fight on hand. It's in your doorway, and you have a technique in there called ringing the doorbell. I don't think it is about the doorbell. What is ringing the doorbell? I don't know this as a jiu-jitsu technique.
Well, it's kind of a pun on words, no pun intended. But, I look at it, we're in a small space. I'm probably caught in that doorway, so I can only move front and back. I can't move side to side because I'm in a doorway. And first of all, I probably wouldn't fit in the doorway if I ate a lot of candy and didn't exercise. So we'll go back to chapter 1 and you'll see how important it is to exercise if you can eat candy. But that's another chapter. But so ringing the doorbell, my opponent can step forward and backwards plus sideways and at different angles. He's got a lot going for him. So what I have to do to finish this thing, I have to ring his doorbell. And basically his doorbell is I guess we call it the groin area.
Okay.
And so basically what I'm going to do is a well-placed eagle claw.
You punch him in the gumballs, huh?
Yeah, yep.
Halloween
So, I mean,
style.
yeah, yep. So, I mean, that normally finishes it right then and there. And, I mean, then what do we got, Byron? Remember how I've talked about the advantages of doing this and the receiver, you will get more candy because they have a better outfit?
Oh, because he's going to drop his bag of candy.
Well,
Can you get
no,
that?
he's going to, after I hit him in the gumballs, that guy is now going to be an opera singer. So we can dress him as an opera singer, and he'll get more candy.
It's mutually beneficial. You're helping trick-or-treaters with their costumes. You're defending your house and possibly your own candy stash from having to give that away by attacking all the trick-or-treaters. Gary, this is an interesting book. I know it's going to sell well. The bad thing is it's not projected to come out until just after Halloween. I think that's probably an error on my part. Sorry,
no, I
buddy.
did that on purpose so everybody can get it, really early and be ready for Halloween 2017.
Oh, yeah, and then selling it like half price, like it just didn't sell well during Halloween. It'll really trick people into getting after it.
And that way I get half the profits because I'm not in this for profits.
Oh, Gary, we are in this to have a lot of fun, and one way you could have fun with us is on social media, Gary.
Oh yeah, we love social media.
Yep, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you might go. We might even be there already. We're not on Snapchat. I don't get that. I'm not. I think that we're too old to legally have a Snapchat. But other than that, we're on most of them. Hit us up anywhere you want.
Check us out on Tinder.
And if you want to help us out, another great way to do that would be to tell a buddy of yours. Clearly we've talked a lot about friends this week, and clearly you probably have at least a couple of them that do jiu-jitsu and may not listen to a podcast, not even one. So introduce them to the world of podcasting, and go ahead and introduce them to our podcast if you think it's something that they would enjoy. So appreciate the help out on that, and bringing your friends to the BJJ Brick podcast.
Yep. Hey, speaking of our friends, our Patreon friends, Rob, Sean, Greggy, and Alexander, we have a link to Patreon. It's a website for content producers. A great way to support the show is to check out Patreon, and you can support the show per episode. All the money goes directly to putting this show on. So if you have a few extra dollars and you really like the show and want to support us, definitely check it out. Like I said, we got a link there, and we appreciate all the support we can get. And don't forget, if you happen to come through the Midwest United States, we're in Wichita, Kansas, let us know. We'd love to train. And like Byron said earlier, we had a couple of visitors here just this last Sunday from Stillwater, Oklahoma, Hank the Tank, and Jared came to visit us. So it was fun training with them, and made a couple new friends, and we'd like to roll with anybody who comes through town.
Yep. Hey, next week, my friends, we have Peter Daniel. He is running a website called Jiu-Jitsu Medic. We're going to talk about a few medical-related issues and jiu-jitsu. So it's going to be an interesting episode. It's things that you probably, if you don't know about them, you probably should, to keep you safe. We talk about cauliflower, different skin infections, just basic jiu-jitsu stuff that is going to affect a lot of us. And let's say you're like me and you never really get cauliflower, but knowing about it, and I'm able to tell my buddy, hey man, you probably should get that trained. It looks like it's pretty swollen up, and then when you get it drained, you have to have it packed. And just learning about these things is just a great thing to have with you on your jiu-jitsu journey. So check us out next week. We'll catch you guys next week. And as always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower for the benefit of your training partners.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.